After trying several intros and even being unable to find a name for this new podcast, here we are. If you are someone who knows what to say, it's in your head, but you struggle to say it out loud, or you stay quiet when it really matters for you to speak up, or maybe you are team replay conversations and wish I had spoken previously. Or maybe you just assume others are naturally better at expressing themselves while you blame English, shyness, or introversion for your inability to speak up where it matters. This podcast was created just for you, and especially for women who are ready to stop shrinking and start speaking boldly. And let me tell you who I am and why this matters to me so much. First of all, I am Abimbola Osodi. Osodi. That's the spelling of my Osodi. I am a speaking confidence coach. Now, I began years ago and my focus was on English. In fact, I started out teaching students and pupils English diction. At some point, I believed, if I could teach adults to speak better English, it would solve the problem of them missing out on opportunities. And because English is our lingua franca in Nigeria, I believed that was the best way to go. And that's how the journey began. But after a while, something did not add up. Now, I had many people coming to me believing English was their problem because that's what I said I was giving out as the solution. They wanted more grammar, more vocabulary, thinking accent change might be the answer. Yet, many of them already spoke good enough English. The only obvious difference between me and them was often the accent. And so I discovered that their real struggle was not language skill. Rather, it was fear that was blocking the English they already knew from coming out. And so, like I began to discover, they were afraid of making mistakes in English, and they thought if they made mistakes in English, it would make them sound less intelligent. Now, they fear being judged or being embarrassed, and they were just so scared of not sounding good enough. So it was never about English. Rather, it was about the lack of confidence to speak the English that they already knew. That was a serious epiphany that I had. And it changed my work. However, that was just the first layer. And whenever I talk about this, it just makes me realize how one of the worst problems you could ever try to solve, or one of the most difficult problems you could ever try to solve, is the problem that masks itself as another problem. Because later on, another pattern became clear, especially with women. So this fear around speaking, it often has deeper roots for women. Yes, English was a surface complaint, or maybe public speaking, like some of them think. Then confidence was another layer. However, beneath that, right way beneath the surface, was conditioning. So women have been taught to be agreeable, to soften the truth, not to sound aggressive. We are meant to avoid offending others. We are to keep the peace at all costs. In fact, doubting ourselves before we speak became what was expected. Carry everyone else first. Be self-sacrificing. We were praised for endurance more than being honest. And when we get firm or direct, we are called the B word sometimes. And so for many women, that challenge was not just the fear of making mistakes, it was this learned habit of self-silencing. And since these patterns are common, they begin to look normal. And, like I said earlier, expected. So these patterns, they get repeated because what happens often can feel natural. When it is familiar to you, you just go with the flow, but it does not mean it is healthy. That's why we have some beliefs that have been passed from one generation to another. And this is how many women have inherited rules nobody questions. Silence is taught as a sign of maturity. Self-erasure is what we praise as being a good woman. Or are we talking about a culture in which a woman suffering means she's a woman of virtue, she's got patience? And this pattern, even though it is common, we can see it being costly. And that's exactly why this podcast exists. And to make it clearer, what this podcast is really about is for you to know that speaking confidence and clear expression should be your birthright. English fear and communication blocks should not stop you from having the kind of life that you want. Boundaries and self-trust are a must for you as a normal human being if you want to thrive. Now, relationships and fear of judgment shouldn't be getting in your way. And so with that out of the way, these are what this podcast is about. Speaking confidence and clear expression. Dealing with English fear and communication blocks. Learning how to set boundaries and building self-trust. You're getting strengthened in your identity, courage, and taking up space. Then becoming freer in how you speak and live. See, your voice is bigger than pronunciation, accent, vocabulary, all of those things. And confidence touches more than just words. Well, as we go on with this podcast, we'll keep unveiling and unraveling all of those. So what can you expect when you keep hanging out with me on this podcast? Honest conversations. You'll get practical tools you can use. Then mindset shifts that change how you see yourself. You'll also hear stories and examples that you can relate to. You get encouragement to trust your voice again. And finally, you'd get support to stop shrinking and to start expressing yourself boldly. Now, before I go, let me leave you with this. Your voice matters now. I mean, right here, right now. Not when you're perfect, not when fear disappears and goes forever and ever, not when everyone approves. I mean, now, right now. And so thank you for being here today. Thank you for hanging out with me. This is only the beginning. Now, if you have a question or a topic you'd love me to cover in a future episode, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you in the next episode.